This is John for Global Traveler. Today I have the pleasure of talking travel and Comic Cons and comics with the busiest man in comics, the new fan engagement specialist for Fan Expo,
Yes,
Victor Dandridge
yes.
Jr. How are you, man?
I'm well. I'm doing very, very well, man. Nice to see you. It's always good to see you, absolutely. And yeah, man, I'm doing good. Doing good.
You are, it's funny, like you are the busiest man in comics, and then boom, there's an announcement that you've now taken on another full-time role as the fan engagement specialist for Fan Expo.
Yes.
We're going to get into that in a minute. Let's
Okay.
backtrack just a little bit. I know your history. I've known you for roughly 20 years. Could you
Mhm.
give just a brief background of how you got into all that you're into?
Of course, of course. So I'm Victor Dandridge, lovingly called the hardest working man in comics, and I had started off with just being a comic book reader with the Death of Superman. I didn't like reading books as a child, and the Death of Superman was like this huge pop cultural phenomenon that I had to be a part of, and it just started opening all kinds of doors for me. And I became not only a comic book reader, but a comic book artist, a writer. Like I wanted to do all these wonderful things, and it kind of set me on a path. And over the course of the last ooh, 30 years. Good grief. How long ago did that come out? Almost 32, actually. I've grown in my, appreciation of comics as a storytelling device, what it does for, artistry, creativity, expression. And from there, like I started doing different projects with some of my friends. I was the lead writer of a book called Hot Shot, which you can kind of see over my shoulder, like right there, with my buddy Mike Watson. We started doing that book in the early aughts. I decided that I wanted to do more, and so I launched my own publishing imprint called Vantage and House Productions. You can see the big V imprint right over there, and that became my own vehicle for telling stories, but recognizing also that, like myself, there are probably other kids that don't like, traditional learning enrichment opportunities. I launched a brand called You Create Comics, which now takes the act of making comics and bringing it into classrooms, libraries, conventions, all kinds of wonderful things, and like giving people an opportunity to get hands-on when it comes to the creation of comics and not something that they have to wait till they get older in order to do. So like I've been doing that for like the last 14 years, which has been amazing. I've had a show on YouTube called Black, White, and Red All Over, which we did 500 episodes almost every week of reading and reviewing comics to get people excited about it. I just launched a brand new podcast called Into the Chatterverse with my buddy Bill, where we're just talking about pop media and things that we're excited about and ways that we hope that pop media changes over the next few years. Like just actively being a part of all the things. That's what I do. And somewhere along that timeline, I got asked to start doing celebrity moderation. So at conventions, I'm on stage with like your favorite celebs and comic creators, talking about all the wonderful things in their career and getting people just as excited in person as we are at our home lives watching these things happen.
I love your artwork. I love all you do. I have a
Thank you.
special affinity for the you create because I think it's fantastic
Thank
that
you.
you're working with the young kids.
Hmm.
I'm not knocking the younger generation. I'm an older guy, but a lot of them are into video games and
Hmm.
that type of stuff. And you kind of break it down to the simple fact of creating your own comics, and it just
Absolutely.
gets kids interested. I think that's fantastic work.
Thank you. Thank you.
In all the conventions, I know again, I've seen you at conventions for close
A
to 10 years.
while. Good
Yeah,
grief.
yeah. Let's just say a while. So you've met a lot of celebrities. Has
Mhm.
any of them left you starstruck?
So here's where I reveal one of the weirdest quirks of my personality. It's not celebrities that get me. It is comic book creators. So because that's where I came from, I will be more starstruck meeting a prolific comic book creator than I have any celebrity. And it's the weirdest thing ever. I totally understand how strange that is for anyone that hears it. I remember I was in Portland and I had started moderating and I'm on stage with different folks and I have no problems. I'm out to dinner and I see writer Jim Kruger, who wrote some wonderful things, but specifically Earth X, which is one of my favorite books of all time. I see him having dinner at this restaurant and I lose it. Like I can't talk, I'm stuttering. And the people that were with me that worked at the convention that I was at were like, we have seen you on stage with some of the biggest names and you are fine. What is this? And I'm like, he wrote one of the most prolific books of my reading existence. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. And they're like, we never thought that you would be starstruck. And I'm like, Give me the right context. Absolutely. So comic book creators are the ones that get me.
But those are the cool stories. Like anybody could be starstruck by the big A top
Yeah, that's
celebrity.
easy.
Right. But I mean, I felt like you when I met Tom Richmond, Mad Magazine, right?
See? Yes.
We all had Mad Magazine. I'm reading this
Hmm.
a youngster, I'm reading it, and boom, there's Tom Richmond. And he could not have been nicer. He's one of the coolest guys. And I could name, 50 other comic
Hmm.
artists like that. That's one of the coolest things. So I want to talk to you about you work for Fan Expo.
Hmm.
Now, when I bring up Comic Cons, sometimes there's a negative connotation. People go like,
Sure.
oh, Comic Cons, have a bunch of people meeting stars. Comic Cons are a huge freaking business.
Hmm.
Fan Expo alone has like 16 Comic Cons
Hmm.
across the country and Canada. They bring
Hmm.
in more than 1 million people. What are your thoughts on this?
So the role of Comic Cons and pop culture has changed over the last, we'll say, 20 years, right? It used to be a place for you to get back issues, maybe meet a creator or two, and maybe meet like a D-list celebrity that you can be like, hey, isn't this cool that I met this person? They have exploded into big business, and not just the business of being a Comic Con, but the business of shaping and molding pop culture. It's one of the reasons why I'm a huge advocate when people are like, well, Comic Cons don't care about comics anymore. And I'm like, that. It's more that comics now include a lot more things than just the books. There are comic movies, there are comic shows, there are comic video games, there are comic adjacent things when you go to anime and manga. And then, like, there's so many different aspects of what comics are that it's now this catch all for pop cultural geekdom. That's really what it's all about. And the thing that makes it so great to me is I remember back in the day when being a geek was not a popular thing. You got noogies, you got pushed around, you got bullied because you were a geek, right? But
Yeah.
now we're the kings of pop culture. Now it's like, hey, you're the guy that knows that thing, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, what do you want to do? Well, my friend wants to read this, but I don't know where to start. We are now like those people that are uplifted by general society because of the things that we have loved for so long. This is tabletop gaming. This is all these different aspects of trading, collectabilities, all these cool things. When we were growing up, and wait, you play with dolls? Excuse me, they're action figures. Now everyone is on that same path. Like they're like, oh, let me. Oh, is that a new He-Man toy? Is that Transformers? Now we're those people. So Comic Cons to me have become center points of pop culture, and that's the coolest thing in the world. To me, it is basically every weekend you see the replacement of what the mall used to be by way of Comic Cons. This is a place that people come in, you can shop, you can see things, you can see people, you can dress up, all these wonderful things. It's exactly what the mall used to be, but just kicked up to a huge degree.
Well, that is a perfect explanation. That is
Thank you.
perfect, dead on. Well, I had mentioned Fan Expo goes to 16 cities, so you
Hmm.
travel a lot.
Yes.
Do you get chances to check out the cities during your work?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Through my career, there have been certain cities that I have absolutely fallen in love with. Because I'm there for Comic Con, I am supposed to be there with a focus, but if I can get away for a little while, I try to. Mostly like when I go to New York Comic Con, I try to take a day where I don't even go to the show and I just see New York because New York is a place for me that is super energizing. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, which is not necessarily a small town, but it's certainly not the size of New York. And there's an energy, a creative flow that I like to tap into and just kind of feel what New York has to offer. And that's one of those places and spaces that I'm still exploring to this day. I have gone to New York almost annually for the last 14 years. And it was just maybe a year or two ago that I just went to Central Park for the first time.
Wow.
Like, there's so much to see in New York that, you pick a borough and it takes you a while before you can get through all the points in that borough before you move on to the next one. And it's really cool. I've got one of my good friends, Jean-Paul Deschamps, who lives in the Bronx, and it's always funny because when I get there, I'm usually the one that's talking about like some fun, like touristy type thing that he's like, oh, we don't pay any attention to that because we're from here. And I'm like, yeah, but this is cool. Like, do you not know this? And so yeah, that's one of those places. Now it's not on the Fan Expo tour. What is though is New Orleans. New Orleans is a city that has such rich culture and just its own personality that I love going down to New Orleans. Hitting up Bourbon Street, definitely you got to do. You got to go into the French Quarter, but there's so much stuff to experience from the architecture, the artistry that's there, the food. Oh my
Oh,
goodness, it is to die for. I'm a guy that I don't like oysters, but I had like grilled oysters for the first time in New Orleans.
yeah.
That is what I want. Like without question, gimme, gimme, gimme. So those are like two places in my like travels that I have to see the city more when I get there. Obviously, Chicago is a big one.
Thank
You
you.
gotta love Chicago. Obviously, with from Wizard World and Fan Expo, we were kind of in Rosemont for the most part, and so many people are like, well, does that count as Chicago? Ish. But if you want to hit the city, do the mile, go down there and see all the things. I used to love when I would go to C2E2, staying in Chinatown because it
Yeah,
was right there,
yeah,
and it's a whole nother aspect of culture. Like it's some of the best parts. When I go to Philly, the Comic Con is right by Chinatown there, and just would love to just go down there and see like this wonderful mix of people that you have, like this urban setting with actual cultural phenomenon that's just happening, whether that's food, sales, people, everything all around. And that's just kind of, I mean, I'm like barely Midwest at this point. So yes, there are tons of places that if I get a chance to go see, I will definitely go see stuff.
Well, you mentioned Rosemont, and Rosemont over the last 10 years has just completely blossomed.
Oh
So
my gosh, it
I
has.
consider it part of Chicago. I'm in Rosemont a
Yes.
lot. So were there any cities, especially on the Fan Expo tour, any
Mhm.
cities that kind of surprised you and hopefully in a good way?
Calgary. Calgary surprised me because it has this beautiful mix. They call it the Texas of Canada, which is like you're like, I don't know what to expect when I hear that. What they have is like a cowboy-esque like motif across the whole city, but then there's actual like very urbanized cityscapes along with it. So it's like this beautiful like mashup of time periods. And all the people are super nice, super cool, super chill, but there's like this cool flow where yes, you can see things if you want to, or you can just relax and walk around, and maybe you got to put in some hard work on the farm, and that's a thing for them. It is such a beautiful mix of identities, and none of it seems to be in clash with one another.
Well, Bret Hart would certainly agree with you on that one.
I You know what, he would, as would Todd McFarlane.
That's
So
true.
all these guys.
Good company. What
Exactly.
is the one or two things aside from work related stuff that
Mhm.
you must bring anytime you travel, whether work related or not work related?
Okay, I have to say this because this is a rule from my mother. She would always say, the amount of days that you're gone, double the pair of underwear. That's one, two, and three. That's a travel tip for everyone. And it's funny because I've had one of my good friends. I posted about this online once, and he was teasing me. He's like, "Man, you pack like a woman. What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "You're absolutely right, I do." And even his mom came in and was like, "But he's doing it correctly. Now I'm worried about what you do when you travel." It was the funniest thing. So loads of clean underwear is a must. Let me just say that right now. That is a must. But one of the things that is super important to me to have at any given time is the means to capture ideas. So whether that's on my phone or my iPad, when I go to places, I truly do get inspired just by the environment that I'm in. Sometimes just being in a new spot just sparks something, and I have to be able to capture that. So it'll be a matter of my phone, an iPad, a notebook, or a sketchbook. I will have one of those on my person in some way, shape, or form, just so I can capture whatever new ideas are floating in the ether.
Just because you're not busy enough.
I mean, what is busy if you're doing what you love? I mean, truly.
No, that's true. That's very true. So tell her what is next on your agenda or in your role as the fan engagement specialist. Either way, what do you
Of
got
course.
coming?
So what I have coming for the rest of the year is I have a number of shows that aren't strictly Fan Expo shows that I'm going to round out, which I'm super excited for. Literally next week, I go to Des Moines, Iowa, for GalaxyCon's showcase of Animate and Nightmare, a combination of more voice actor centric stuff and horror. So I'm super excited about that. And I have a couple of GalaxyCon shows throughout the rest of the year. I also will be returning to Motor City Comic Con. I'll be hitting New York Comic Con for a day or so. And really what the rest of this year is about for me is setting up the format, foundation, and structure for how I'm going to still be producing new comic book material, be creating new material for my You Create line, while also being the fan engagement specialist for Fan Expo. And really what that does for me is it gives me, let's say, a bigger platform to take all the different ideas and things that I love and celebrate, and put them at the forefront of making sure that it makes sense to fans and can influence their experience, that it highlights celebs that I'm working with in a real big way, and really just kind of make sure that we are evolving Comic-Con culture for the future and just keeping it forward moving for everyone involved. So that's really what it's all about for me.
So does it involve like you having ideas about additions to the Comic-Con or potentially subtractions? Or are you more just focused just on the fan experience?
So I don't want to limit exactly what it is. I think it could be all of those things, truthfully. There will be a portion of it where when we have celeb guests, I will be a part of designing what their panels now look like. So it's not just going to be a matter of having conversations. We're going to do some new things and really kind of change what celebrity panels look like at Comic Cons. It's going to be, me bringing my You Create line to different workshops and having things set up where people can be enthused, inspired for creating something, and then they get to go home with materials that they can do themselves and keep that magic going throughout the rest of the summer or the season or however long, until they get to come back and come to another show. There's all kinds of things that are wide open for us to explore, and I'm super excited to be doing that.
Well, I'm super excited too. I mean, I go to Fan Expo every year.
Yes.
And I've known you forever. And I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you or because I consider you a friend. I think you're a fantastic addition. Although you're already with them, but it's a fantastic addition in that role. I think you're the perfect guy for it. You've got the enthusiasm. You certainly have the knowledge and the skill and the creativity. So I look forward to what's going to happen next year with Fan Expo, and I'm going to be there.
Yes, yes.
We're going to
make sure it's great. Yes.
Sorry? No. Before I let you go, tell people where they can find out more information about you and whatever you do.
Absolutely. You guys can Google me, Victor Dandridge. If you Google the hardest working man in comics, I will pop up. But I have a number of different brands that I like to highlight and celebrate. Obviously, Vantage and House Productions is my key one. That is the publishing home, from some wonderful titles like Wonder Care Presents The Kinderguardians, The Samaritan, The Trouble with Love. We have a range of different titles from all ages to mature. So we've got something for you to read without question. Also check out You Create Comics. That's the letter UCRE, the number 8. Comics.com. If you're interested in making comics, even if as you are a kid, if you're a professional, we have not only workshops that help you do it, but we have a whole supply line that shows you how to make comics. Or if you're already, well versed in it, it's just a simple supply line to help you make more comics. So that's what we're all about there. I have my Geeking clothing line, and if you follow my social medias, if you go to All Hail the Geeking on Instagram, not only do you see the T-shirt line that we have, but also the shoes that we kind of rock all the time when I'm on stage with different celebs. That's one of my huge fun pieces right there. And just keep looking for the hardest working man in comics, because I'm coming to a show near you, I promise.
And if he's promising it, it's happening, because I know he is the hardest working man. When I see him at Comic Cons, it's usually a blur. We occasionally get to high five or something like that.
That's it. That's all we get.
Yeah, but I mean, I know you're busy. I know you're helping make it a great event for everybody. So I appreciate that. I appreciate your time. I thank you for making Comic Cons better and more. I don't want to say acceptable, but more open to more people is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
So with that, sir, I bid you adieu and good luck, and I'll see you at a Comic Con soon.
Absolutely. John G, always a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, pal.